a forbidden embrace. They say marriage is built on trust, a sacred bond woven with shared dreams and unwavering loyalty. But what happens when that trust frays, not from malice, but from a yearning so deep, so primal, that it threatens to consume everything in its path? I never imagined myself capable of betraying Daniel. I loved him, or at least I believed I did. But love, like a delicate flower, can wither and fade when starved of the right nourishment. Ours had become a quiet routine, a comfortable silence that masked a growing emptiness. My transgression wasn't a calculated act. It was a slow, insidious burn, a flicker of attraction that gradually ignited into an inferno. And by the time I recognized the danger, I was already consumed by the flames. The spark ignites. It began subtly, an undercurrent of awareness that pulsed beneath the surface of our mundane family dinners. Daniel, once my ardent lover, had become a ghost, his attention perpetually tethered to the glowing screen of his phone. His touch, once a spark, had become perfunctory, a mere formality. And then there was Richard, my father-in-law. He possessed a magnetism that Daniel had lost, a vibrant energy that filled the room. Where Daniel was detached, Richard was present, his gaze lingering just a little too long, his smile radiating warmth. I used to admire him from a safe distance, the dutiful daughter-in-law. But one evening, as I reached for the serving dish, our fingers brushed. A jolt, like static electricity, surged through me. His eyes met mine, a flicker of understanding passing between us. In that instant, I felt seen, truly seen for the first time in years. The dance of desire. It was never meant to escalate. Stolen glances across the dinner table, a shared laugh at a private joke, I rationalized it as harmless flirtation. But Daniel's late nights became more frequent, the house echoing with a chilling emptiness. And Richard, he became a constant presence. His visits were initially innocuous, a borrowed tool, a dropped-off book. We'd share coffee in the sun-drenched kitchen, discussing literature, art, anything to fill the void. He listened with rapt attention, his eyes mirroring my own unspoken thoughts. One stormy evening, the heavens opened, unleashing a torrential downpour. Daniel was away on business, leaving me alone in the cavernous house. The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows. Then, a knock echoed through the stillness. It was Richard. "Just checking on you," he said, his voice a low rumble as he stepped inside, shaking off the rain. I should have turned him away. I should have preserved the fragile remnants of my fidelity. But I didn't. We sat by the crackling fireplace, the storm raging outside, mirroring the tempest within me. A bottle of wine stood open on the hearth, its crimson depths reflecting the flickering flames. "You deserve to be cherished, Elena," he murmured, his voice laced with a tenderness I hadn't heard in years. He reached out, his hand gently cupping my cheek. "And you see me?" I whispered, my voice trembling. His answer was in the intensity of his gaze, the way his eyes devoured me. The air crackled with unspoken desire. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "More than you know," he whispered, and then his lips found mine. The kiss was tentative at first, a hesitant exploration. But as the storm raged outside, our passion ignited, a wildfire consuming every ounce of resistance. His tongue traced the outline of my lips, sending shivers down my spine. His hands moved through my hair, pulling me closer. That night, we surrendered to the forbidden, lost in a whirlwind of passion and longing. The dawn of reckoning. I awoke to the weight of his arm across my chest, his warm breath ghosting across my neck. Richard. Beside me. The reality of our transgression crashed down upon me, a crushing wave of guilt and exhilaration. For a fleeting moment, I clung to the illusion of innocence, wishing I could rewind time. But I couldn't. I sat up, the sheets falling away, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What have we done?" I breathed, the words barely audible. Richard turned, his eyes filled with a complex mix of regret and something else, something akin to triumph. "Something inevitable," he said softly, his hand reaching out to caress my arm. Tears welled in my eyes. I wanted to deny it, to dismiss it as a momentary lapse. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. The tangled web. Days turned into weeks, each moment a torturous dance between guilt and longing. I avoided Richard, my interactions with Daniel strained and awkward. But the memory of his touch, his kiss, haunted my every waking moment. The guilt gnawed at me, but it was overshadowed by a deeper, more unsettling emotion, a yearning for the stolen moments, a craving for the way Richard made me feel. Secrets, like whispers in the wind, rarely remain unheard. One evening, Daniel arrived home early. He stood in the doorway, his face etched with a pain that mirrored my own. "We need to talk," he said, his voice flat. My stomach plummeted. He knew. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy with unspoken accusations. "I know something's changed," he finally said, his gaze fixed on the floor. "And I know it's not just the distance between us." I opened my mouth to deny it, to weave a tapestry of lies, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I crumbled. Tears streamed down my face as I confessed. I betrayed you." I braced myself for his rage, his accusations. But he remained eerily calm. "I suspected," he said, his voice hollow. "But I never imagined him." Silence. A suffocating, deafening silence. "I don't know what to do," I sobbed. "I don't know how to fix this." He let out a mirthless laugh. "You can't." The shattered reflection. Daniel left that night. He didn't shout. He didn't plead. He simply packed a bag and walked out the door, leaving behind the shattered remnants of our life together. Richard and I never spoke again. The family gatherings ceased. The laughter vanished. My marriage was over, a casualty of my forbidden desire. Shame clung to me like a shroud. I lost everything in a moment of weakness, a moment of exquisite vulnerability. And the most terrifying truth of all, I couldn't bring myself to regret it, because for the first time in years I had felt truly alive. But the price of that awakening was steep. Only time would reveal the full extent of the consequences.